Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AMPA Myanmar and Power Expo Myanmar Digital Fringe Program. I'm Rajani Su from Taipei World Trade Center. Our topic for today's discussion is solar energy potential in Myanmar. We are very honored to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Kapase from Mandalayoma, the largest decentralized solar energy company in Myanmar. Mr. Kapase, would you please give us a brief introduction of Mandalayoma and also your presentation?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here and talk to everyone. And again, more than delighted to share some knowledge about the country, the potential of renewable energy in particular in here. About us, quickly, we are a company based out of Singapore. We work on multiple sectors, working across decentralized solar in villages in the country. We work on telecom, again, decentralized renewable energy on using telecom. We do EPC project management, and then we also do investments in rooftop C&I. We're also a partner with NENG in France, based and working on basically decentralized electrification, helping the country on its national electrification plan for 2030. As I said, so we're in Mandalayoma Energy, which is our company which is a JV with NENG Group. We focus on off-grid electrification, and in this off-grid electrification, our goal is how we could reach and support the country in its goal towards 100% electrification by 2030. Mandalayoma Solar focuses on commercial and industrial solar. We are fortunate to have a very good client base here in the country, working with multinationals, working with local conglomerates who are looking for sustainable ways to fuel and grow the country. So we work on end-to-end customized solar power solutions. We've deployed in the past year something about 70 to 80% of all the solar in this sector on rooftops. We're also working with some of the largest Fortune 500 companies in the country. Mandalayoma company focuses on project development on utility scale, EPC, focusing on feasibility studies, construction, operations, and EPC. And Mandalayoma Telecom is working on and focusing on basically providing sustainable and also reliable electricity to telecom towers, which are currently in off-grid areas of the country. I think you understand about NENG pretty well. It's a huge company worldwide, operating in about 70 countries in the world, and NENG is our partner in decentralized electrification for villages in Myanmar. We work with the government in the country, work with the MOE, work with Department of Rural Development, and provide ways of how we could play a part in the country's electrification plan. We also have end-to-end expertise from basically working as a contractor, consultant, and as an IPP. By the way, we are not only working in Myanmar, we are also working in Southeast Asia across a few markets. We work in Myanmar, in Mandalay, Yangon. We work in Cambodia, we work in Indonesia, and we've just started some operations also in Vietnam. So we are deploying in this year, this is just our current year, about 8 megawatts across the region, all around decentralized and mostly in rooftops. We also work with some of the multinational clients, as you can see here in Myanmar and across the region. Some of our projects which we've implemented in the country, these are all a mix of our village portfolio, a ground-mounted portfolio, rooftop portfolio, and where we are working across the board and having basically the biggest team on ground, and also finding ways on how we can influence and move the sector towards adoption of renewable energy technologies. On Myanmar's solar potential, I think I will go next when you have any more questions, and I'll just pause for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Kapase. Myanmar has over 60,000 villages, and most are without any access to electricity. This is coupled with one of the lowest population densities, which makes decentralization of energy much more attractive. So, Mr. Kapase, what would you suggest to the international companies to grab into Myanmar's renewable energy market?
Yes, thanks for the question. You're right. I think Myanmar has a number of villages, over 50,000 villages, And if you look at the electrification rate in the country, the last number released by the Ministry of Electricity and Energy in Myanmar is about 50%. So there are about 50% households in the country, which amounts to about 5 million households. The country has about 10 million. So 5 million households are still without any connectivity or with electricity. And most of these households are either using kerosene lamps, candles, or using some of their own basic mini grids run by diesel, or some basic, they might be using some solar home systems. So the country has immense potential for growth. If you look, there are bottom of the pyramid households which are looking to get access to basically just having lights. And also there is at the top end reliability of the grid, etc., which are needed, which shows that the potential in the country is huge. Currently, the country still has just about 4 to 5 gigawatts installed capacity. And the Ministry of Electricity and Energy recently, in the past 6 months, announced one of the big tenders in the region, about a gigawatt of solar coming into the grid and adding that basically in the next 12 months. So we'll be seeing more of that. Let me just take you through a bit of the details of where Myanmar needs electricity. So if you can see here on my first graph, you see Myanmar still has the lowest per capita consumption of electricity. It's because of years of isolation, and of course the FDI in the country has been low over the past decades. And so the country, as more companies come in, set up their factories, set up shop, more development of the industrial zones, and more capacity in the country. So this demand will grow in line. We've seen the stories in other countries, and I think I'll come to that. But before that, if you look at demand forecasts by the World Bank, by JICA, I think you can see that the country by 2030 is looking to add at least about another 10 gigawatts of electricity, and will need that in the coming years. So that's, I think, something that the investors should know, and the investors should be aware of where they will add. If you look at some other countries in the region, you can also see that the growth story has been amazing over the past decades. So you can see Thailand, Indonesia, all the way down to Philippines, Singapore. But when you look at Myanmar, Myanmar is right here at the bottom, hasn't shown any growth in the past decade. So I think this is, if we follow the similar trajectories of other countries, we see that this could grow dramatically. And of course, if you look at industrial sectors, etc., the growth in the industrial sectors has been much, much lower. I think this is again due to the low demand, lower investments in the country in the past years. And we can see that in the coming years, compared to Thailand and Vietnam, if Myanmar were to grow, the industrial requirements will also be huge. And with such huge requirements comes, of course, the need for more investors, more public-private partnerships into this energy sector of the country. Overall, of course, for solar, Myanmar has huge potential. You can see the irradiation is great across the country. Most of the parts of the country, the irradiation levels are pretty sufficient, again, better than some of the neighboring countries. And if you look at the outputs and the revenue which we could have, I think it's pretty good for investors on all simulations we do regularly. And most of the towns and cities lie in the good regions. I think I'll just stop at that and work on your next question. That's all I had very quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Kapase, and thank you for joining AMPA Myanmar, Empower Expo Myanmar Digital. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of this session. We would like to say thanks again to our presenter for the informative and interesting talk. I believe this will be beneficial for you, and I hope you will also enjoy AMPA Myanmar, Empower Expo Myanmar Digital. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.